To this webinar, 9 Reasons Why Pastors Struggle to Raise Money and How You Can Change. Thanks for joining me. If you would like to introduce yourself, feel free to do that in the chat box there. That's just on that side over there, I think it is. If you want to stay anonymous, that's totally fine. Happy for you just to be hanging there and join the webinar. But thanks for joining me, 7 o'clock in the morning here in Perth, West Australia. Wherever you are in the world, feel free to say hi and introduce yourself. If you want to stay in the background, feel free to do that as well. Why don't we kick off today? I'm going to send you a poll. And again, if you want to jump in with these things, great. If you don't, that's fine as well. There's a poll coming through that if your income in your church increased by 10%, what would you use that extra money for? And I like doing polls when we do webinars, and we'll jump into the webinar in a minute. I'm just going to see if I can get Facebook Live rocking, which I have tried to do on previous webinars, but had some tech issues with it that I don't know why. So let's see if we can get Facebook Live happening this time. Yep, okay, looks like it might even work this time. I've had previous issues with this, but we're going to see if we can get Facebook Live. So jump in with that poll. What would you do if you had 10% extra income in your church? What would you use that for? Would you use that for evangelism, discipleship, adding staff, giving staff a pay rise, put it away for a building program, do some local evangelism, some local missions? What would you kind of use that extra money for? And I think every church would like some extra finance, and I know that would be helpful for you. Okay, Facebook Live's just going to kind of wheel along there. I think I'll just jump straight into the webinar and let's get going with the presentation. 9 reasons pastors struggle to raise money and how you can change that. Now, if at any time you want to send me a message, there's little buttons over there. Again, on that side up there, message me, or you can book a time with me if you would like to do that, just to chat about things with no obligation, etc. But let's jump in. Here we go. A little bit about me first. 30 years pastoring in our church here in Perth. I have an MA, a Master's in Leadership. I have also a diploma in professional coaching, and also have been doing consulting for the last 7 years. Grow Healthy Church is my organisation I do that with, that we started 7 years ago, working about 10 different denominations and movements, and altogether done 115 consults with churches over the last 7 years as well. Also in our church, we raised a lot of money for a building program, did a multi-million-dollar building program. So that was over many years of raising funds and shifting our building from one place to another place, and also shifting our church's generosity. We were able to lift our missions giving 500%, that's it, fivefold, over a number of years and over a journey of learning how to raise money and do that in a way that really does help people. And also as a consultant, I've been able to help churches increase their giving. One of the most remarkable ones was a church in Sydney, Australia, where their Faith Promise pledge that they did every year, it went up 400% in 1 year. After I consulted with them, gave them some ideas, and they had a good culture going, but they raised a lot more money in their Faith Promise that year. So I have a lot of experience in this area, and it's one of my passion areas because I want to see churches do better in raising money. And I noticed that no one's introducing themselves. That's fine. If you want to introduce yourself, say hi from wherever you are around the world. I'm cool if you don't want to do that either. But great that you could join me. Thank you for that. Let's have a look at what will benefit, who will benefit, who's going to get the benefit out of this particular webinar of 9 reasons pastors struggle to raise money and how you can change that. People who are struggling with raising money, so pastors and leaders are struggling to raise money, especially for vision projects. A lot of churches are viable. They get by. Their day-to-day operation expenses are okay. But sometimes with raising vision projects, people are not really kind of like doing that well in those areas. So if that's you, this webinar is going to help you, certainly in terms of vision projects. Who else benefit from this webinar. People whose vision fulfillment is hindered. So I've already been talking about that. Where you kind of got the operation, you got the day-to-day going okay, you're viable, you're getting through, but you got some big projects, maybe some missions projects, maybe a local high school project, maybe a building renovation facility, something you just want to do in the community. And you want to raise more money for that. This webinar will help you with that, absolutely. Also, who will benefit from this webinar? People coping with a lack of income. So maybe your operational day-to-day is just not working and you're trying to figure out how to do that and how to get more income flowing. This will help you as well. What are you going to get today in this webinar? I'm going to give you some next steps, things that you can put into practice, into action immediately. You're going to get increased clarity. I'm a huge fan. If you've been around any of my Facebook Lives or in any of my scenarios of any situations, then you know that I'm a huge fan of clarity. I probably should have asked someone whether you've been able to actually hear me, because no one's actually come on. No, my mic is on. Everything seems to be working. If you can hear me okay, someone just give me a little wave so I know that you can hear me okay. All the tests on my mic camera seem to be working, but no one's chatted back to me yet, which is fine if you want to hang in the background. What else are you going to get today? Useful resources. In fact, because you registered for the webinar, I'm going to give you a special bonus. Here's someone jumped in. Thank you. Loud and clear. Thank you so much. Victor from Sydney. Thank you, Victor, for jumping in as well. Thanks, folks, for letting me know that. Also, there's a special offer that I only give to people who register for the webinar. Is 1 month free in the hub. And I'll talk a bit more about the Church Growth, Church Health Hub that I have. And there's resources in there. And you can jump in for a month for zero cost and get all those resources, download them, and then disappear. More than happy if you want to do that, but I put resources in pretty well every week of the year and keep building. It's a huge... The hub's been going for 2 years now, and there's a huge amount of resources there. You're going to get actionable solutions, and especially if you dive into the hub, I'm going to give you access to my whole Faith Promise Vision Builders program that you can roll out in your church, show you how to do that step by step. Okay, let's jump in. The 9 reasons why pastors struggle with raising finance. First one is the fear of failure. And I think this is a real thing that pastors face. So I think there's 2 topics that I found when I was pastoring 30 years in our church. 2 things that pastors, I think, struggle. Hey, Luke from Melbourne, thanks so much also for jumping in and saying hi. And someone else, hi, John, thanks for hosting this. I don't see everyone's name come up, so if I don't mention your name, apologies for that in the chat box. But thanks so much for jumping in. Happy to host this too. Thank you for that. Fear of failure. There's 2 topics that most pastors really have to wrestle hard with to preach on. One is money and one is sexuality. I'm not diving into the sexuality, but both of those territories are peppered with landmines, and you could just put a foot wrong and kaboom, it blows up in your face. And so pastors know when they weave into the area of money that you're really touching an area that's very private. I like people's sexuality and their whole life, their world around sexuality is very private. It's very inner, and it's very something you share just with everybody. Money's the same thing. And you're just worried about, if I sound a wrong note, if I go a wrong angle on this, how's that really going to work out for me? So I think a fear of failure is a real thing that pastors wrestle with as well. I think a second reason is that pastors and church leaders want to avoid being that guy. Now, you know as well as I do that the whole thing is the church is only after your money is a big deal right around the world, and big deal in Australia, but also I know in countries around the globe. This church kind of reputation, this kind of proverb, the church is only after your money, which is not true. Do churches want your finance to flow into their church? Absolutely. Of course, I think unashamedly, I'd say that churches should want people to give generously to the mission and the vision of the church. But pastors struggle with raising money because they don't want to be that guy who's always talking about money. That guy is always doing lengthy offering talks and seem to go on and on and on about it, and don't want to get that shadow of prosperity stuff on us and all that. We don't want those labels. So one of the responses pastors do is, instead of running to the battle, they kind of go, oh, no, it's just, I don't want to get that label, so I'm not going to go there at all. I think it's a real reason why pastors actually struggle. A third reason why pastors struggle, excuse me, raising money, is that pastors generally, the pastors that I know, and my background as well, is pastors generally are not super savvy about finance. We didn't join the ministry. Pastors don't join the ministry to make money. I haven't met a guy who's joined the ministry so he can get wealthy. Generally, most pastors don't come from a background of running a business or from a background of financially savvy families. And so I call this a lack of financial intelligence. Now, that's not emotional intelligence. That's not IQ and an ability to think well. I'm not talking about integrity, those sort of things. It's just pastors don't always know a lot about money. They've studied theology, scriptures, pastoral leadership, but generally haven't studied financial management. And so they have a deep desire to help people, to preach, to minister the gospel, to bring people to Christ, to baptize people. But then they realize as they grow a church, they realize, you know what, I actually need some money around here to make this thing work. And then I get a vision of this thing working at a higher level and a better level. And it's kind of like, okay, I'm really going to have to now raise money. How do I do that? I feel ill-equipped for it. And a pastor might be emotionally intelligent, spiritually alive, theologically sound, but not have a huge number of clues about this. And so lack of financial intelligence can become a real issue, I think, for pastors. And I'll talk a bit more about it. I'll get on the solution side on this as well, not just the problem side. A fourth one is, I think this is very real. Pastors, generally as pastors, because of I think it's related to the public profile of a pastor's life. Generally, you as a pastor, and maybe you've battled with this like I have. I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to be disliked. I want people to like me. I want people to kind of pat me on the back. I want people to encourage me. I don't want people to block me, like I've got in this photo here. I don't want the big hand coming up and, hey, don't talk to me about that. And if you've ever preached on the area of money, you'll know that there'll be intimidating reactions from people, some downright hostile. So that can be a real challenge for pastors as well. Reason number 5, naive idealism. And I bump into this occasionally in all the consulting and coaching I do, is that pastors can say, and I've read stories of great, men and women of the church history who have just prayed and the Lord has provided and just miraculous provision again and again and again. And their framework of reference is Israel in the wilderness, where God supernaturally for 40 years provided food and water. Their frame of reference is not the promised land, where you have to go in and actually work the land. Sure, there's a grapevine already there. There might be some corn planted or wheat planted. You get that crop, but it's not going to supernaturally just develop by yourself. You have to work the land. So some pastors have a frame of reference that is the wilderness. I'm just going to believe God and pray. And I think it's naive idealism. I've got a fairy here in the bottom of the garden. I think it's a bit of fairies in the bottom of the garden sort of response. And the Lord can provide supernaturally, absolutely. I've seen that in our building program when we were $500,000 short on what we needed. We're at our max in borrowings, max in what we'd raised, max in what we could sell our current building for back then. And we're $500,000 short. And I'm going, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to build a smaller building. I'm going to have to leave carpets out. What are we going to do? And through the tender process, a builder put in a tender process that was $450,000 less than what had been estimated the building would cost. And that $500,000 was a supernatural provision from the Lord for us, which is remarkable. So God can provide supernaturally. I have no doubt about that. And I've seen his provision again and again in our own lives, but also in our church's life and various organizations I've been with. But I think it's naive idealism just to rely on that. And pastors can get quite disappointed because, they've prayed and prayed and believed and things have not come through for them. Sixth reason, getting through these, then I'll get on to the solution side, which I know you want to hear. Their own personal finances are in chaos. So a pastor can be in a place where his own personal finances, their own personal finances can be a mess. They're kind of trying to work their way through some credit card debt, or they don't have a budget, or their expenditure is out of control. And, whenever you preach on a topic as a pastor, you can't just present the kind of black and white truth in the scripture. You have to weave into it your own journey around that. Otherwise, it lacks that authenticity. It lacks that sense of punch that can come with preaching as well. I don't mean physical punch, but it can lack that sense of, you know what? I've kind of worked through some stuff in this area. And I remember years ago when Di and I, this would be 25 plus years ago, really struggling with credit card debt. And we just had to make a commitment in our own personal financial world. We're going to clear this debt. We're going to get rid of this debt. And then we're going to make sure that we get our financial house in order, which we did over a period of time. Took us a while, but we got it. And so pastors can kind of, I don't think I want to preach on this topic because, you know what, I've got a bit of a challenge myself at a personal level. Number 7, the Bible posits opposing views. And I think this is an interesting one about the scriptures. You have in the scriptures, you see people like Abraham and David and Solomon exceptionally wealthy. And so you see massive blessing financially in certain heroes of the faith. And then you look at Paul, the great church planting apostle of the book of Acts, making tents to get by. And so you have this, hang on, this guy's getting really blessed financially. It's obvious. You can see it in the scriptures. And here's this guy kind of like, man, he's kind of having bivocational stuff. He's making tents to get by. And that can be kind of a bit hard. You get that scripture in Proverbs, Proverbs 30, you give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you. So who is the Lord? I may become poor and steal and so dishonor the name of my God. And that's a bit of a put down the poor people and rich people in that scripture. I think I don't take that as just, man, I got to have this where I've got to be, just my daily bread. Because if I get rich, I mightn't cope with it. I get poor, I mightn't cope with it. I think that's an interesting insight into someone's heart about money. But I don't, my personal thing is I don't think that's the floor that you build on. So you have to work through where you sit theologically on this. And I think that can be a challenge for pastors with those different views. Number 8, it's a bit of a fog for some pastors and church leaders. How do you actually present a need? How do you actually put a need in front of people that moves them to be generous, that moves them to give, that doesn't feel like a pressure? And I think one of the things that I found in my journey and as I share some of the solutions, maybe a bit more on this, but I found I was able to get into a place of talking about money, preaching about finance, discipling people about finance, and raising significant sums of money in a relaxed, almost laid back, but confident way. That I didn't feel like I had to whip people into a frenzy. I didn't feel like I had to pressure them into doing it. I had a level of faith about it in a relaxed manner. And I got into that over a period of years of doing this. And I'll talk a bit more about that in the solutions side. So sometimes pastors and leaders just don't know how to present a need. They either apologize for talking about it, or they just do it very nervously, move on quickly. We don't want everyone to get upset about the money. Okay, 9th reason why pastors struggle is a lack of training I was never trained in preaching about money. I never had someone sit down and mentor and coach me through this area. And that's one of the reasons that I actually really enjoy coaching pastors around this area and helping churches do better. And that's why I put resources in the hub and also help pastors with this and talk to them about stewardship teams and processes and how you can get yourself into this, and just even encouraging pastors to do an annual finance series. I've found little things like that. And so to actually be able to train pastors and church leaders how to raise money has been a real joy for me, because I find when churches have more money flowing in, they can do more visionary things. The visionary projects that in the hearts of the leadership of the church can get done because of that. So let me throw another poll at you here. Have a look at this one. What do you think is your biggest challenge in raising money? Have a look at this poll, check it out, and kind of click on that, have a bit of a look at it. What's your biggest challenge in raising money? Which one of those, do you kind of face out of all of those that I've put in there? Is it related to a lack of training? Is it related to a lack of financial intelligence? Is it the fear of rejection or the fear of the hostile reaction of people? With that poll, just tick one of those that you think is your number one challenge in raising money. And we all have our different approaches. I think for me, I think the kind of fear of rejection was probably a big one for me. Of will people like me? Will people actually back away from me because I tread into this area and very carefully, waringly treaded into that area when I did my first money series? Okay, feel free to jump in and answer that poll. Let's go on to 6 solutions. I want to get on the solution side here and give you 6 solutions that I think can really help you. Because I want to help you today with things that will actually shift here. And some of them are heart things. Some of them are pragmatic steps you can take. So first one, this is a positioning of yourself there. Positioning. Oh, the poll isn't working for you. Okay, sorry guys. I'm not sure why that is not working. So feel free to ignore the poll. I don't know why that isn't working. Okay, little technical hiccup there. I'll keep moving with the webinar content, and apologies for that poll not working. A key thing that I've found is how do you position yourself when you come to disciple someone one-on-one or a small group or a church about money? And this is an issue of discipleship. It's not just about getting people to be more generous to the church. You don't want to position yourself to how do I get people to give more money? That's not a good place to sit positionally. Positionally, where I sit, and I remember hearing this many years ago, interestingly from a prosperity preacher guy, but it struck me, and this truth has never left me. Get money to, not from people. So when you come to disciple your church individually, small group, whether it's preaching a finance series, position yourself in the place of, you know what, I want you to do better in your financial world. I want you to learn how to handle worldly wealth in a way that honors Christ, that provides for you, and if you have one, a family, that enables you to help poor people and needy people. It helps you live a good life as well within your current scenario and within your demographic. And I think this proverb alone, I think, has helped me do far better in discipling our church, in raising money, yes, but also in helping people get to a better place with their money. So one of the things I'm passionate about is I want people out of credit card debt. A lot of people struggle with credit card debt. So one of the things I position myself is, how can I help you get out of that credit card debt? Because I know also, if you're in credit card debt, you can't be generous. It does not work. So how can I get you into a position where you're doing better? And I think that's a disposition, a framework. Set yourself there, and I think you'll find that be really helpful. Second solution is get financially intelligent. Here's a guy looking at the business section of the newspaper. And one of the things I started to do, because I was not raised in a family that was, really savvy about money. I'd never run a business. I'd worked in various jobs and different places and never really in a finance connected sort of industry. And so I was pretty financially unintelligent. So I started reading the business pages of the newspapers, not because I was particularly fascinated by it. I just wanted to improve my knowledge. I started reading books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great book to read to get more financially savvy. I read also The Richest Man in Babylon, books along that sort of kind of genre of wealth creation and how to do well with finance, just to broaden my understanding. I looked at what Jesus said, studying the Bible, looking at what Jesus said, and looking at what Solomon said. Proverbs is full of interesting angles about money, because a lot of Proverbs written by one of the wealthiest guys on the planet. So that's a great resource to jump into. I also did things like I bought some shares personally, laid out some money in speculative shares, blue chip shares. I wanted to see what it felt like, that greed and fear that comes with owning shares. Got involved with talking to small business owners, talking to investors, eventually did some property investment. I did a whole range of things to broaden my financial intelligence so I could talk in a way that was intelligent about money. And I've made myself over the years far more financially intelligent. Now, one of the things I would encourage you to do is read a book like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon, study what Jesus said, jump into Proverbs, kind of let that pour into you. Find someone in your church who trades shares and talk to them about it, whether you do it or not. I always encourage people to do at least one trade of shares just to feel it and experience it, what it's like. Talk to people who invest in property, of the ups and downs and the risks and the blessings and the joys and the pain of doing property investment. Kind of get yourself more financially intelligent so that when you talk about money and you preach about it, you're coming with a wealth of material that will really help you in this area. A third solution I want to present to you is the increase of prayer. Now, I think the two biggest battlefields in spiritual warfare are evangelism and raising resources. So whenever you step out to see an increase of evangelism, we're coming up to Easter and I'm doing this webinar to get people into church for Easter services. You're reaching out maybe into schools, you're planting churches, you're doing missions. Whenever you step into the arena of increased evangelism in your church with various strategies, you will go into the front line of the battle. Now, I think it's exactly the same. Whenever you look to raise financial resources for vision fulfillment, whether it's missions, buildings, special projects, whatever it is, whenever you go, we're going to raise extra income. And I would love for you out of this webinar to have a look in the hub of the resources of how you can actually start a fundraising program that will see the fulfillment of the vision, the dreams that God's put in your heart. Is as you step into that arena, you must increase prayer, because it's the front line. Evangelism, I think, and raising financial resources and increasing stewardship, discipleship in your church, you're on the front line of the battle, and you need to be putting on the armor of God of Ephesians 6, and you need to gird yourself for the battle with prayer, and pray yourself as a church leader, but also getting more people praying for you and the church as you move into a zone and a season of talking about money, discipling the church, raising the profile of increased generosity in the life of your church. I think, can I just say this? You cannot neglect spiritual warfare through prayer when you enter this arena, because you will find it's a battle. And it's a battle that the devil does not want you to win. It's a battle that he wants to knock you out and disappoint you and dishearten you through this process, because you will find a battle. I remember the first time I did a money series, and I mentioned this in some of the promo material. The first time we did a money series in our church, the very first message, and the phrase I used in the promo material felt as cold as an Arctic winter. the full story of that is that when I started this first message and the first money series that I'd ever done in our church, it felt like, to me, this might be too dramatic, but it felt like a spirit of death came into the meeting. It just went, woo, the atmosphere was cold. It felt like I was kind of like taken aback. I thought, oh my goodness, what's going on here? And I could almost see and feel shutters closing in people and people closing down on me. And I realized in that moment, this is a battle. This is a fight. This is a war, because wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart is. If your treasure is flowing into kingdom advancement, your heart will be there. If it's not, your heart's somewhere else. And so this is a battle of the heart. So prayer, don't underestimate the importance of prayer in this whole process. Okay, number 4, get your own financial house in order. Make sure that you're a generous church leader, that you're giving at that 10% minimum base. To me, the tithe 10% is a floor that you build from. I have a message that I preach about why I stopped tithing, and people go, "Oh, you're not tithing." I said, "Yeah, I've given above the tithe for decades." I said every now and again I want to reduce my giving down to the tithe, but it's a bit of a joke, bit of an angle. Make sure you're generous. Make sure you're budgeting your finance, knowing what you're spending, where it's going. Look at times, reducing your expenditure. Can you find another income stream into your world? If you have credit card debt, get out of credit card debt, wend your way out of it. Takes you a year or two. That's okay. Set your sail for it, because you will disciple people far better when your own financial house is in order. When you've got the things set right in your world, you'll find that it'll work a lot better for you in discipling other people. Number 5, lead an annual faith promise program. And this is where I think the material in the hub can be so helpful for you. I've got a whole process in the hub of how to set this up, how to run it, how to follow it up. And I've helped a lot of churches in this area, and our church does an annual faith promise program. What is an annual faith promise program? Over about 2 or 3 weeks, you do some financial series, and at the same time, you present a vision to your church. And generally, I encourage churches to call this a vision builders program. And you present visionary things to the church. Might be about missions, local high school evangelism, overseas missions. Might be about a building project or a facilities renovation, whatever. Visionary things. And you present that vision, and at the same time, ask people to make a promise of what they're going to give over the next 12 months. And this is how I present it. I say, look, make a commitment. That's your promise. Give that money monthly. Just commit into it, or weekly, whatever it is, or if it's a one-off, whatever. And then use faith to believe God to provide for all your needs. It's not a faith promise where I'm believing the Lord will give me $3,000 and then I'll be able to give it. No. That's not a faith promise. A faith promise is a commitment that I'll fulfill. Then I'll believe God to provide for all my daily needs. And then you set that program up, you launch it, you get people to make their faith promise commitments. And I show this all in the hub process, how to do this. And then you have a feedback loop every month of what their money is achieving in fulfilling vision in the life of the church. So many churches don't do this. Our church has done this for many years now. It's in the culture of the church. And we actually got up to 40% of our regular Sunday giving being given again into our missions program. So what I mean by that, if your annual giving is $100,000, just your general Sunday giving, our church was giving another 40,000. These aren't our numbers. I just want to explain it. Our church is giving another 40,000 into missions above and beyond that 100,000. 40% of our annual Sunday giving was extra. And so many churches don't do this. They're missing out, I think, on significant discipleship moments and significant fundraising moments by doing this. And I'm a huge fan of faith promise programs. If you don't have one in your church, or if it's a bit of a sloppy one, the hub will help you out with that. Right. Solution number 6, overcome opposition. You have to set yourself to be courageous and strong, like the Lord's kind of exhortation to Joshua in Joshua 1. Be strong, be courageous in what you're doing when you're going to raise money. You will have opposition. You'll have opposition from people in your church. You'll have opposition from the enemy of our souls. You'll have opposition even from leaders in your church. People kind of get stirred up about this stuff, and you have to decide as a leader, I'm going to take courage. I'm praying for you right now that you'll find the courage and the strength in Jesus, that you'll find the courage and strength that Jesus wants to give you to be a leader who raises resources for vision fulfillment in the life of your church. Let me talk to you a little bit about what I do as a consultant and coach to help churches in a whole range of areas, but one of them is raising finances. A few of the folks that I work with, Chris Carmody, an Australian pastor, the last 12 months, he's seen 19% growth in his congregation size, implementing recommendations from our consulting. David Hooper, pastors here in regional Australia. I keep coming back to the hub. This is our church growth, our church health hub here at Grow Healthy Church for the valuable resources that help us become cutting edge. Pastor Jacek, good friend of mine in Poland, the hub is an invaluable help in my journey of pastoring a church. The content is totally practical. Pastor Jim Yap here back in Australia, the hub is my virtual coach containing nuggets that help me realign with my church's vision. And also Pastor David here in Australia, the wealth of experience found within the hub has already proved invaluable, not just for quick wins, but helping us to sustain into the future. Let me have a look at this. What we've discovered today is that solutions abound, but nothing changes if nothing changes. And I want to give this offer to you because you've turned up for the webinar, you've registered for the webinar, turned up. You might be watching the replay, exact same offer for you as well. I want to give you a hub membership free for 1 month. So I want to give you all the resources that are in the hub. They're going to be free for a month, and you can sign up. You can cancel at any time. You can stay in the hub for a month for no cost at all, because I want to see the advantages that will come to you through the hub. When you go to the dashboard on the hub, you'll see these various elements. I want superb Sunday services. I want to raise more money. I want to survive the rigors of leadership. I want to develop leaders. I want to grow my church. These are all key sort of portals that you go into. When you dive into the portal, say the one, I want to raise more money. When you dive into that portal, you'll find a whole range of different things here. You'll find a roadmap, which I'll show you a bit about in a minute. You'll find masterclasses about building vision-centered budgets and so on. And you'll find a range of quick wins, which go for about 5, 6, 7 minutes, about various aspects related, particularly in this portal, related to finance. You'll find interviews in there. One of my great friends, Dale Hewitt, did an interview with him. He's a great fundraising guy who's able to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for missions. I did an interview with him that's in the hub that you can access as well. When you dive into something like the roadmap, which is a step-by-step how to raise more money roadmap, this is what it looks like. You'll find there's about 10 or 12 elements to it, lessons. They go for about 5, 7 minutes each, and you can wend your way through them at your own pace. You can watch it on video, you can listen to the audio, you can download the PDF, the notes, you can download the PowerPoint slides, you can download all that, and that's yours to keep and use as you want to. And you'll find that in that roadmap, the last 4 lessons are how to set up and establish and continue to thrive with a Vision Builders program I've been talking about. So when you join the hub free for a month, you can get in there, grab all that material, and you can cancel at any time. I know, I think it's a crazy offer, to be honest with you, but these are my resources, and I want you to be able to use these resources to help you in all areas of church life, not just raising money. There's heaps of different areas there of church life that you can dive into and enjoy. We also have a private Facebook group for hub members as well you can jump into. There's all sorts of different things. Here's a quick win in the hub, or various things about raising finances there and so on. This is a masterclass, how to develop a vision-centered church budget. If you don't have a church budget, then this masterclass will take you. And folks, I'm wired very practically. And so my material is very step-by-step how to do something, and you'll find that material helpful there. There are interviews. There's interviews with Carl Vaders, a great friend of mine in the States. Interview with Dale Hewitt about raising money. Fantastic interview. They will give you some ideas as well. There are book reviews in the hub. Book reviews about all sorts of topics related to church life as well. And all this is for you, for turning up to the webinar, for registering, is totally free. There's also a monthly live webinar that I'm just about to switch into. We'll do it through Facebook Live in the Facebook group that you become a member of. When you join the Hub, we add you into that group. I do a monthly webinar for Hub members only, and it's called Ask John Anything. Throw any question at me that you like, and you can jump in and enjoy that as well. So there you go. You'll notice over on, yes, that side up there, you'll notice that the Hub free for 1 month, you just click on that Buy Now button. That will take you, if you don't want to leave the webinar, you can click on it. So it opens up a separate tab. You click on there, you can join there, free for a month, cancel anytime. Jump in and enjoy everything that is in the Hub special. Well, sign up today. I would encourage you to do that. Sign up for that Hub freebie that's there just above the chat box. And I've got time for some Q&A. If you have any questions you want to throw at me, feel free to throw them in the question box there or in the chat box. And I apologize again for the poll not working. I'm not sure what happened with that. I'm not sure if Facebook Live worked. Doesn't look like Facebook Live worked, so I'm not sure what happened with that either. That has not worked. So wherever you're coming from. But if you're still here with me, there's a bundle of people still here with me. Happy to take any questions that you've got that you'd like to ask about this topic, any area that you think, do you like a bit more clarity on that, John? Or if you've got some feedback about the webinar, I thought it's going to be a bit different to this, or anything that I haven't covered that you would like to cover, feel free to throw that into the chat box or into the question box that's over there. And if I don't get any questions, I'm going to finish the webinar. But give me some feedback. Jump in with a question if you've got one. I don't want to try another poll. I'll tell you what, I might try another poll and just see if I can get one to work. Here we go. Let's send this poll and see if that can work for you. The only reason that I think one of the polls here, no one's answered any polls at all yet. Normally they work fine, so I'm not sure what's happened there. But if you have a question, jump in. If you've got some feedback for me, jump in as well. Would love to hear from you as well. Okay, no questions. I've answered everyone's questions. I'm pretty thrilled and excited about that. Thanks so much for joining me here on this webinar, 9 Reasons Pastors Struggle to Raise Money and How You Can Change. Really appreciate you being here. Hope this has been helpful, and jump in and enjoy that Hub free for 1 month. God bless you. Thanks for joining me.